I think one of the most important things is to just trust yourself, because once you like kind of package up everything and take it on the road, the more innovative you are, the more naysayers there will probably be. People are accustomed to what they're accustomed to. So if you're coming out with a new product, a new idea, a new way of doing things, I feel like you can expect that there will be people who give you pushback. Sometimes before you leave your home, there are people in your own family that are saying, I'm not really sure about this idea. So, really, I feel like if you learn as much as you can, if you're very authentic, if you're passionate about what you're doing, you've done your research, then you just got to trust yourself.
At the end of the day, you have to trust that what you're doing is going to be the best next step. And if it's not, then you can adjust, right? There's always an adjustment that can happen, but you got to get started first.
How to get started. You can't wait for everything to be perfect. And that's a
Yeah,
personal lesson. So I'm telling everybody
I'm
that
telling you.
start now. There'll never be a better
Yeah.
time than now.
Hey, my people. This is Bobs and the Burbs, a podcast featuring talks with business leaders to help you find, fund, and amplify Black-owned businesses in suburban areas and beyond. I am Ashley L. James, founder of ALJ Digital, and today I'll be speaking with Echell Eady of Eady Consulting Group, and she will tell us about the power of belief in entrepreneurship. Hey, Echell, welcome to Bob's and the Burbs. Thank you so much for being here today. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Ashley.
We'll go ahead and dive right into it. Can you start us off with a bit of an introduction and tell us about your firm?
So introduction. As a professional, I've spent about the last 30 or so years working at the intersection of career development and post-secondary education and social services. After a while, it occurred to me that I might be able to do better in a smaller niche. And so I stepped down from full-time employment and I started my consulting firm, Eady Consulting Group. What we do primarily is work with organizations who are serving people in substance use disorder recovery to prepare for, find employment, and of course, be successful at work.
Very good. Okay, well, that is a very large undertaking. What kind of drew you into that work?
Well, as I said, I've always kind of been in the helping space and I've always worked with non traditional students. A close family member went through substance use disorder, and I was there to kind of help them through the entire process. They have
Mhm.
been successfully in recovery now for about 10 years, but one of the missteps I made early on was thinking that, now that you've come out of treatment, you just need a job, right? And I think somebody
Mhm.
with my background, I think everybody needs either a job or an education, and then all will be right with the world. And what I didn't realize was that sending someone directly into full time employment without any extra or special skills, coping skills, directly after recovery was not a good idea. And
Mhm.
I found out much later that my close relative was not the only person who experiences this. It's kind of a phenomena where people who are still a little, how can I say, they're still in a place where they're not completely on solid ground. They're still a little
Yeah.
vulnerable. And so taking them and putting them into a place that's going to add stress, sometimes just not the right environment, sometimes temptation, even at work. I didn't think it out very well. And then I started finding out that a lot of people in recovery are experiencing similar things. So I felt like I had a strong enough and a, kind of deep enough and, of course, narrow enough skill set to be helpful with this population.
So that makes a lot of sense, kind of coming from having a personal experience with this recovery avenue and then taking that and making it into a business and figuring out a way to help others that are going through the same situation. What are some of the services that set you apart from others?
Well, first of all, as I mentioned, I am independent, and so I'm able to work among and between organizations. I think it's kind of fun to not be necessarily beholden to one organization or another. So, say for example, I'm at a community meeting. If I get information that will be helpful for three institutions that I know of, I can partner with all three. Whereas before, when I worked for this particular, college or tech school or whatever it was, I felt like I needed to, and of course, my supervision felt like I needed to bring opportunities there to them. I needed to bring students and clients to them. And now I just feel like I can help everybody, find the best fit, whether it's the best fit for a grant opportunity or whether it's the best fit for an individual. So,
Okay, so it's not just kind of following a template for anyone. It's what exactly can I do to help this specific type of person or
yeah.
organization? Great, great. And then can you share any lessons learned along the way?
Lessons learned, there's so many. And I will say that because, when you're accustomed to working for someone else, and I've always thought of myself as a pretty good, like a wing person, not necessarily wanting to be at the lead, but being able to kind of scan the environment and find opportunity and find danger. Like that's where I've always been pretty comfortable. But what started
Mhm.
happening was I wasn't satisfied with the rate and the quality of the work that I was seeing for this particular population. And not that anyone was doing anything wrong necessarily, but I just felt like this was the population that I could see and I could serve. So, but my first lesson, of course, is that when you go out on your own, you're not able to say, well, I'm with XYZ national or international company and they have a great reputation and people will make meetings with you based on that. It's a little
Mhm.
different because now I'm introducing myself as this is me and I'm,
Right.
pretty much spearheading this. And so I didn't realize that sometimes it would be kind of difficult to have an entree into certain communities. Having said that, I have found that building relationships, regardless of your field, is always going to be so important because you never know who is going to be that person that may know someone. And if you build a strong relationship and you have a good reputation, that's going to make it much easier for you to kind of put yourself and your business out there.
Yes, very good insight. So I really appreciate you sharing that. So let's talk a little bit about where you're operating from. So what's the name of your suburb and tell us a bit about having a business there?
Well, I live in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. It's about 35 miles southeast of Nashville, Tennessee. And this is what I think a lot of people would call a family community. We do have a very large public university in our city as well. Um, so the university really creates a lot of opportunities. Many students come to study at Middle Tennessee State University and they never leave. So yeah, Murfreesboro is pretty vibrant as far as suburbs go, in my opinion. And we're close knit, so it can look big, especially when you're talking about, say, traffic or getting from one side of the city to the other. But it really does have a small hometown feel. And in certain pockets, everyone knows everyone. So hopefully, I'm describing
Mm,
that kind of well.
absolutely, yes. So it sounds like you've had a good experience in Murfreesboro.
I think so.
As a business owner, have you experienced any challenges that you would want to talk about?
I have, and I'm not sure if it's because of the community necessarily, but I think the line of work that I'm in right now is not necessarily accepted, broadly accepted, right? So, for
Mm,
example, I know I'd say maybe 5 years ago, there was this big push nationally to get high school students to look at technical and vocational training. And I remember working for a vocational school and really having to sell to families that post secondary education is post secondary education. Everybody doesn't need to go to Harvard. Sometimes you go to a 4 year university and you come out, and depending on your industry, much of what you've learned has already changed. So just having to
Mm,
get the community as a whole to look at certain things differently. Again, not that one
yeah.
thing is better than the other, but just considering something new. And so, with the work that I'm doing, especially, I think that the substance use disorder, mental health population um, is kind of ignored when it comes to the workplace. I feel like a lot of employers are slow to hire people who have experienced substance use disorder and because of that have had to leave the workplace. It's not very
Mm-hmm.
different from reentry from justice involvement. And I just feel like, as a community, we need more resources. Companies need more resources. And being a one person show, sometimes it's a little bit lonely. But that is why I think
Mm-hmm.
partnerships are so important because we already have people in the community doing the work. And
Mm-hmm.
in that way, I think my consulting is more like a catalyst than anything.
Okay. And on that note of progression and trying to move this forward, what are some ways that people can educate themselves about what is going on in the Murfreesboro community with those different groups, not just substance use recovery, but also justice involved, impacting individuals and all the different groups that you just mentioned?
Well, we have a lot of really good resources. Just to throw some out, we have the Rutherford County Reentry Department, which is part of the county government system. We have nonprofits that include Doors of Hope. They work primarily with women. Greenhouse Ministries is a pretty well established organization. I don't think I could do certain organizations justice if I'm in some and not others. But I do think
Mm-hmm.
that just broadly speaking, good old Google and just typing in substance use disorder recovery or even treatment in so many different places will pop up. One thing I have found, even before I actually educated myself to be a kind of a subject matter expert, I guess I can say, in this particular field, but just going in and talking to people, meeting people, this has been a community that has been very open to having people come in and ask questions and just see how they can relate or what they might be able to do for them. I don't think all industries necessarily can say that. Some, of course, for security reasons. I mean, it makes sense. But a lot of I found a lot of warmth in just open spaces where you can go in and ask questions. But I definitely would start with Googling, again, substance use disorder, mental health, recovery, and what you'll find, at least in this area, but also nationally, there's so many different agencies, some nonprofit and some private, and many governmental agencies that can share information.
Okay, so that's plenty of different resources that people can seek out and learn more. So thank you for that. All right, so switching gears just a little bit, let's talk about maybe some of the tools that you've used in your business in order to market and to stay in contact with people, do different things.
Well, yeah, sure. I do a lot of one-to-one networking, so I'm not big on promoting or having huge marketing campaigns because most of my business does come from just relationship building. Having said that, a lot of times in conversation, you may be in a setting where 10 people are trying to talk to the same person or whatever. So
Mm.
I still rely on good old fashioned business cards because I know that's something that you can share in passing and then the person will check their pockets or, their purse when they get home and say, "Oh, look, I can get in touch with this person." You still have to make yourself
Yeah,
pretty interesting in the few seconds that you have. But
right.
also, I have a website. It's very basic because it is really for people to follow up on information that I share with them face to
Hmm.
face. I do utilize social media, primarily right now LinkedIn and Instagram, but I look forward to using that more often. I feel like when I'm doing one to one coaching with clients, I probably get more traction using the social media platforms. But really, working with organizations and companies, a lot of times they want to be able to go to your website and, see what information they can find there.
So you kind of have to have both, like that online presence on social media as well as that website. And what's that website, by the way? Let's plug it right now.
My website is eadyconsulting.com. So very simple, not so simple to spell. EAD as in David Y consulting, all one word, .com.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Now we were talking about the social media platforms that you use, and I'm all for social media around here. So you called out LinkedIn and Instagram. Is there a reason why you've kind of chosen those in order to reach out to your audience and potential clients?
Oh, yeah, for sure. LinkedIn, because I had a lot of connections already in terms of business type connections on LinkedIn. And so it was very easy to expand, very easy to post information and to share flyers. Like, for example, during National Recovery Month, I was able to post a lot of different things from organizations. On Instagram, I found that pictures are great. I mean, it's Instagram, but video seems to get a lot more traction as well. And so I
Mm-hmm.
started posting videos very reluctantly. I mean, that's kind of like not my thing. But when I saw the attention that they were getting, I felt better about doing it. And so I'm doing more of that. Just really short, brief, informational things. Again, sometimes about the population, sometimes about events that are going on either nationally or regionally. And then someone, I want to say it was someone named Ashley, suggested that perhaps I can use those same videos on LinkedIn as a format. So I'll be doing that.
You did the work already,
You're right.
just go ahead and get it out there. Well, good, good. Okay. And so when you're creating your videos, are there any tools that you're using there? Or how are you creating your videos?
I use my phone. I don't use
Okay.
filters. Sometimes I will use notes because let's face it, when I get excited about a topic, I could go here, there, everywhere, and I want to make sure I'm making my points. So I'll probably
Mm-hmm.
post like a note card or something so I don't forget anything. I do have one of my sons actually has like a full blown studio. And so if there's going to be a situation where I feel like, all right, everybody in the world is going to see this, then I'll go ahead and let him hook me up to the little mic situation. And yeah, but typically I'm telling you, I just use my phone and I do something really quick with some information I think will be helpful, for everybody.
Okay. And hey, that's what works for you. And that's what it's all about, doing what you feel comfortable with so that you can stay consistent with it. So that works. Good, good, good. So then let's move into some of the lessons that you've learned type of thing. So if you could share one piece of wisdom with an aspiring Black entrepreneur, what would that be? And it don't have to be just one. I know we talked about this a bit. If you have more to share, you can.
Well, and I'm glad you kind of threw in like a Black entrepreneur. I don't know that everything would be different, but I do feel like a lot of times becoming a student, regardless of what you've decided to pursue in business, even if it's been a hobby your whole life, but making sure that you learn as much as you can about the entire landscape of what's going on, right?
Mm.
Prepare, 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 whether it's going to be a meeting, whether you're doing a presentation, because that helps build your confidence. So, knowing what you're talking about and being able to speak to different audiences about what you're talking about,
Mhm.
practicing, I think one of the most important things is to just trust yourself. Because once you like kind of package up everything and take it on the road, the more innovative you are, the more naysayers there will probably be.
Mhm.
People are accustomed to what they're accustomed to. So if you're coming out with a new product, a new idea, a new way of doing things, I feel like you can expect that there will be people who give you pushback. Sometimes before you leave your home, there are people in your own family that
Mm.
are saying, I'm not really sure about this idea. So, really, I feel like if you learn as much as you can, if you're very authentic, if you're passionate about what you're doing, you've done your research, then you just got to trust yourself.
At the end of the day, you have to trust that what you're doing is going to be the best next step. And if it's not, then you can adjust, right? There's always an adjustment that can happen, but you got to get started
You
first.
got to get started. You can't wait for everything to be perfect. And that's a
Yeah,
personal lesson. So I'm telling everybody
I'm
that
telling you.
Start now. There'll never be a better
Yeah,
time than now.
absolutely. Yes. And kind of on that same note, is there anything about starting a business that you feel people might not understand right away, or just from the outside looking in, they just don't understand that this goes into it?
Of course. Like one of the things that drew me to starting, stepping out on my own and starting my own business was having that autonomy of decision making, what time I wanted to do what work. And there, I realized that I am doing probably 4 or 5 different positions myself. And so, even bringing on
Mm,
consultants for specific assignments, I still am what CEO and CFO and COO, and I'm my own admin right now. So just thinking that I'm going to be, I love what I do. And so it doesn't feel
mm,
like work, but my hours have expanded. My hours did not shrink when I came out on my own. So that is one
yeah.
thing. And then another thing, just being patient and not expecting Rome to be built in a day, so to
Mm,
speak, being patient with yourself. And one of the things that really helped me is actually an organization called SCORE. It's a national organization, and I would really hope that people will just Google SCORE in all
mm,
caps, and you'll know you're in the right place when you start seeing free or low cost courses for entrepreneurs. I learned so
yeah.
much, and I know some business owners, don't get me wrong, but just starting at the base of what you may or may not know. Did I necessarily institute everything that was suggested by SCORE? I did not. And I don't think everything is for everyone. But when I tell
Right.
you how valuable learning what you don't know is, and just learning what to look out for, I think that's a wonderful organization. And so if you only had time to really pursue one, I guess, stream of information, I would highly recommend SCORE for that.
Oh, yeah, I second that because you definitely find a lot of great resources with SCORE. It's specific to whichever area you're in. We've lived in a few different states, and everywhere I go, as a business owner, one of the first things I do is look into SCORE in that
Okay.
area. Yes, because of all of the things that they offer, and especially with the classes, like the different webinars they do, or even in-person classes that they do as well, and opportunities to network with the people around you. You get a little bit of all of that,
Yeah.
and most of the stuff is free
Most of it is free.
resources. Yeah, so it's a great organization to know about, to look into, and to use for your business. So yeah, definitely taking that one. Um, and then, has there been any memorable interactions or stories that you would want to share about building your business so far?
Stories that I would want to share.
That's the key. See, you have to want to share it. I'm not
No,
forcing you.
no. It's okay. One of the things that I struggled with as a new business owner is asking to be paid, and I know it sounds really
Mm,
interesting to say it that way. Did not. I'm one of the business people who did not go into business to become wildly wealthy, even though I have no aversion to wealth. But I really saw a need in the community that I didn't think anyone else was feeling in the way that I could feel it. However, because I volunteer and I'm really active in the community and everything, it seems like sometimes the lines have been blurred and people think that a thank you, and a box of chocolates or something is going to be sufficient. I'm like, well, no, this is my company now, so I'm going to have to be compensated for my work. And that can be
right.
awkward sometimes when you're working with people, but one of the things that's helped me is to really package myself. Like, you can't just necessarily go in as a handshake if you're shaking the same hand, you've been shaking as a community volunteer or something. So, really being
Mm,
able to be super clear about the value that I'm going to add when we work together or when I work with your clients, that's made all the difference. It really has. I try to be very strategic about which organizations and companies I approach. Again, do my research and find out if they even might be a good fit before I go in, and have
yeah.
the discussion about how I can be of use. So,
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. There's also, I wonder if have you learned anything from SCORE that kind of helped with you getting past that hump of you actually have to compensate me, like this box of chocolates, while tasty, is not going to pay the bills. They don't accept chocolates. So yes.
Yes, that's a great question. Actually, a couple things. One is, again, being prepared with having very official and very specific paperwork, documents, just so that people are able to make the transition, whether you know them or not. They're able to look and say, okay, here's the value. This is what the investment will be. So everything doesn't need to be verbal. It gives people a chance to ponder. Like a lot of us are visual learners anyway.
Yeah.
So that's been one thing that I learned directly from SCORE. And then one of the SCORE webinars that I attended, it happened to be free. It was on intellectual property. Again, maybe not important for everyone, but certainly for myself because I'm customizing curricula for different organizations and everything. And so, really understanding what my intellectual property is, whether or not I should be copywriting certain things. So, just that whole area of knowledge that I did not have. But if there are inventors out there, for example, also learning about patents. And I mean, this is information that some people pay a lot of money in business school to learn, and SCORE is willing to
Yeah.
support you in that knowledge for free.
Oh yeah. So it's a huge value, for sure. And I mean, there's also value just knowing how to ask for that money, because I think that that is that is one big pitfall, and it's not just on the going from being in a nonprofit space to being in a for-profit space, but also just being able to raise prices. When it gets to a certain point, you have to make sure that the work that you're doing, you're able to cover your costs with your services. And you can't cover your costs if you still basing your pricing off of what it was 3 years ago. There's going to be some changes there. And if you don't change, then you're not going to be able to keep up.
It's funny you mentioned that because I also took a SCORE on helping people figure out what they should be charging based on what actual costs
Mm-hmm.
are and what you want your profit margin to be. And again, if you are a business school graduate, everything I'm saying probably sounds like, learning how to color inside the lines with big fat crayons or whatever. It might sound very basic, but that is not my background. And so that
Mm-hmm.
information means everything to me as a new business owner. I'd like to throw out just a bit of hope though for our newer business owners. One thing I'm finding now is that having been in this kind of environment and serving in this particular expanded community, people are now coming to me and leading with what would it cost for me or what would my investment be. And that's when you've really gotten some traction and
Yeah,
you've been doing a good job of sharing your value.
absolutely. Yeah, 'cause they're like, I know I'm gonna have to pay. Tell me how much I'm gonna have to pay. That's a very different conversation than, oh, you thought I was gonna pay you. You want me to pay you? It's a very different approach there. So, okay, so we got some laughs going. So since we're on that track, let's move a little bit more into some of the fun stuff that we like to talk about on Bob's and the Burbs. Um, what's something interesting, and it doesn't have to be business related, that you have read, watched, or listened to lately?
Something interesting that I have. Well, I'm always listening to interesting stuff.
Of course, naturally, of course.
I I think just given the overall climate of the nation right now, and maybe even the broader world right now, listening to inspirational things has been really helpful for me. I like a guy, Les Brown. I think he's probably pretty
Mm.
famous now, but I've been
Yeah.
listening to that guy for years, like years and years and years. And I'll stop with that years, but a bunch of years. And his information is always fresh. Sometimes I'll go back and listen to older like recordings or things he's done. But
Mm.
I like Les Brown because he has struggled. And so he brings a wealth of knowledge about starting something from nothing, but he also always interjects that motivation. And
Yeah.
that's something that I think is really helpful, regardless of whether you're on your own or you're going into an employer every day. So I listen to Les Brown a lot. I love music. I listen to all kinds of music, and yeah, love music.
Well, since you mentioned that, that goes right into our next question. So, we have our Work It Out playlist. So, I like to ask, is there a song that you would want to add to our playlist on YouTube? A song that you'll recommend, something that gets you going, or, whatever vibe you want to be on.
Something inspirational for me. There's this song that I've toyed with. My score class helped me because I was going to start closing all of my talks with it, and they were like, "Yeah, you might want to make sure you get licensed and clear for that first." So, yeah, see, score's amazing. But the song is called "Unwritten," and it's by Natasha Bedingfield. And I think that it pumps me up because it really can apply to anyone. Basically,
Mm.
for me, the point of the song is you got up, you have another opportunity to finish writing your own story. So that would be my song for just really getting pumped up. Now, if you're talking about some treadmill work or getting my blood flowing, yeah, that's usually things I wouldn't share on the air, but they work.
That's okay. That's okay. Hey, you gotta have something to yourself as well. So that's perfectly fine. But as we're starting to close out here, where's a few places online or otherwise that people can connect with Edie Consulting Group?
Again, LinkedIn, I'm searchable on there. The website, I really highly recommend because from the website, you can contact me directly either via info@edconsulting.com or via my actual phone number. That can be a direct line to me most days. And then, of course, as I said before, just the edconsulting.com. I am always out and about in the community, active with Chamber of Commerce, Rotary. I'm trying to think everywhere. I go everywhere. I'm a very curious person, and I definitely want to serve. So if you see me in the community, whether it is our actual Murfreesboro, Greater Middle Tennessee community, or an online community, make sure you say hey.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. So, what is one thing that listeners can do to support doing your business right now?
My business specifically, I guess just spread the word of, the work that I'm doing, even though I am primarily working with local and regional nonprofits and companies. Nationally, there's a movement for recovery friendly workplaces and recovery ready workplaces. And I'm active nationally when it comes to supporting that movement. Some states have programs already in place. And just to be brief, what that entails is having companies become trained to be good settings for someone in substance use disorder recovery to come and work,
Mm.
as opposed to us crossing our fingers and hoping because this employer says they're a second chance employer or because they're willing to hire someone with this background that everything will be great. Company and business owners are subject matter experts in what they do, not necessarily in special populations who may come in and work for them. So I'm a proponent of the movement. We haven't done much with it in Tennessee yet, but that is one way that just immediately you can support the work that I do. As far as supporting me specifically, have me out to speak to your employer. I just got invited to our Salvation Army to go and speak to them about different ways I may be able to help directly with their clients. And so those types of opportunities, even if it's not going to end in a business opportunity, I really am very passionate about being an advocate for the substance use disorder, recovery, and mental health community. So if I don't do anything except educate a group and reduce some of that
Mm.
stigma, I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, because that's huge. I mean, just getting more people to understand what it really is, not just what they think it is. Yeah. Okay. So before we close out, this is the last question, I promise. What is the biggest takeaway that you want to leave with us here today?
The biggest takeaway is I personally believe that everyone was put here for a reason. We all have gifts. You can be an entrepreneur. I believe they call it entrepreneur in the space where you are now if you happen to work for an employer. But just know that one of the places I think you can gain the most confidence is just realizing that it doesn't matter if you're making a hamburger. How many different hamburger places do we have? If you believe in your heart that you can do a better burger or you can do a better burger for a specific community, then you owe it to yourself, you owe it to your family, your legacy, and you owe it to the burger eating community to go ahead and make that burger. My burger happens to be serving people and helping them get back to work once they've gone through substance use disorder. I don't know what anybody else's burger is, but I highly recommend that you go ahead, do it. The time is now. Your ducks will never all be in a row because ducks move. Just do it now.
Yes, just do it now. Absolutely. So with that, thank you so much, Echell, for being here. Really appreciated this talk with you and just learning more about what you're doing and what's going on in the Murfreesboro community. So thank you so much for being here today.
I appreciate it. If I can ever do anything to help out, just let me know. Thank you.
We'll do the same here. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
All right, my people. That brings us to the end of this episode of Bobs in the Burbs. To enjoy more interviews like this one, please subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your podcast player of choice. You'll catch new episodes every third Thursday of the month, so be sure to do that. You can also follow me, Ashley L. James, or ALJ Digital, on LinkedIn and Instagram for updates. And I will add Echell's social links and social channels and links to the show notes. So make sure you follow and support Eady Consulting Group in any way you can. Thanks so much for joining me today. And until next time, remember, we out here too. Bye.